Hey everyone, thanks for joining me tonight. I'm talking about the Alaska trip, which I've done many times. This year I am altering the date slightly. It will be August 22nd through August 31st. So those are the dates right now, and I personally have already bought my airplane ticket, so it is definitely a trip that is a go. The trip will have a maximum of probably 8 to 10 people at most. If I have 10 people, I'll have a co-pilot, as I call them, someone just to help me with, driving, or, if for some reason I were to get too tired, they'd be able to drive or help with bags or any of that. But when the group is smaller, I tend to pretty much do most of it myself, but sometimes I still have a buddy there that's available to help us. We start in Anchorage, Alaska. So there's a lot of direct flights from various parts of the United States up to Anchorage. That is the capital city. Or no, I guess no, Anchorage is not the capital city. I got that wrong. I always think of it as the capital because of where it's located. It's odd to me to see Juneau way over here. That's kind of hard to get to, but Anchorage is a beautiful city. Flying into Anchorage, if you book a flight and like to have a window seat, get a window seat and fly like so that you're coming in kind of maybe towards sunset because the light overall, you see all these various islands as you're coming into Anchorage, and the colors of the water and the mountains and the water is just stunning to me. It's just really, really pretty. And to have that view from the airplane is really stunning. Um, Alaska Airlines obviously flies to Alaska, all of the major airlines. Sometimes you will be connecting, I believe, in Seattle. Oftentimes I connect there. And I know we talk about this a lot recently, but make sure you have plenty of time to connect. Look at your connection times. A lot of times the quote inexpensive tickets, they just literally don't give people enough time physically. I've heard travel journalists talk about it. They really shouldn't even be selling these tickets where you have like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That's just physically impossible. I mean, you know yourself, when you're sat on the plane and people are disembarking, I mean, it takes time, depending on when your flight is coming in, a good hour and a half, even 2 hours, because Seattle's airport is really beautiful. There's lots of interesting shops. Maybe you want to get something to eat before that last stretch up to Anchorage. So it's really worth having a little extra time. I've started to kind of just plan in some extra time at the airport, and then I feel relaxed. I'm not like stressed like, oh my gosh, I got to get to the bathroom and I got to get this and I want to get a snack or my water needs to be refilled, all of those things that we need to do. And we all know the airports are just getting more crowded and they seem like they're bunching the flights. I've read a lot of articles about this as well, that for whatever reason, and this is why we need to get in touch with the Federal Aviation Association and other numbers and just let them know, like, this isn't good. The airport's packed and more people just need more time to get from point A to point B. And when the aisleways just in the airport are so crowded and there's a line at the bathroom, it just, it just makes it kind of not as pleasant, let's put it. So give yourself extra time. For those that like to arrive that day early, I can help you book the same hotel that I'm staying at on the 21st that night. And I did secure a lower price. But if you want to, because that would be an add-on, if you want to get a different room in Alaska, we can always coordinate for me to pick you up there on the 22nd. So don't worry about that. It's sometimes better to get in that extra day and have some downtime or rest. For those of us that are there on the night of the 21st, depending who all has arrived, and if you feel up to it, we might gather for a meal, just an introductory, something casual, get to know each other in person a little bit. From Anchorage, we will spend a little time in Anchorage. There's a lot to do in Anchorage, and it may kind of depend on the weather. So sometimes we go to the cultural center, which I very much enjoy. It really kind of dives into the Native Americans that were there prior to us, kind of their different medicinal practices, how they use plants. They have sometimes a area where they have actual artisans that are still making things from these groups of individuals, and it's really fascinating. I really enjoy my time I've spent there. For those that maybe want to do something different, I always sometimes include, there's a trolley tour that goes around Anchorage and shows you different areas of the city, which kind of gives you a good overview. There's really just a lot to do right there in Anchorage, so we do try to do some things there. And as I often talk about, I love food, so we will find a great place to eat. Anchorage, Alaska itself, there's a lot of salmon, fresh salmon, and there's different kinds of salmon and different ways they prepare it, all kinds of fresh fruits and vegetables. I know before I hit record, I was just talking about, it's odd to me, but it kind of makes sense. They have such a short growing span in Alaska of time for these plants and fruits and vegetables to grow that, their fruits and vegetables just get massive. And they also seem to taste very, very fresh. A lot of the restaurants have a little garden right there next to their restaurant, which I love that idea. I think it really makes a difference in what you're experiencing in the foods and the dishes. Depending on our timing, the Alaska State Fair is going on this time of year, and it's a fun place to go. As we all know, state fairs in the United States all have, like, the midway with the games and the rides and music and different things, but going to the one in Alaska, you're just going to see different things and different types of jams and foods. And like I was just saying, there's a whole section where they judge like the flower displays and who grew the largest pumpkin. And so it's just a lot of fun. It's just a great way to spend some time. Again, that might be dependent on our group because the state fair is kind of spread out like most state fairs are, so there would be a bit of walking. So again, we may have to kind of talk that through if someone's got a little bit of mobility issues. In the past, sometimes some of us have walked further or chose a time to meet up, or there's different ways. I try to be really flexible and have some things that you can have a choice of things to do and make it really accessible for all kinds of individuals, because honestly, Alaska is a place that you could go to on your own. It's fairly easy to rent a car. There's not a lot of roads, so it's not, as long as you stick to the main roads, it's kind of hard to get lost. It's just more that idea that Alaska miles to me seem a lot longer, so there's a lot of open space and just the vastness of Alaska. So it is somewhere you might want to go with a group just to have that camaraderie, so you're not driving hours by yourself. But I do also work with people that want to do it themselves and help them plan that too. From Anchorage, we'll head north to this amazing artsy community called Talkeetna. I love it. It's just, if anyone used to see, there was a show called Northern Exposure. I think it was in the 90s. And even though they filmed that in the state of Washington, it actually they kind of took Talkeetna and kind of modeled their look of the town. The fictional storyline does take place in Alaska. So Talkeetna kind of has that. It's on a river called the Nenana, if I pronounced it right. The river itself, though it looks very flat and it looks like you could walk across it, it moves. The current is very, very strong, very, very fast. And in fact, last year when we were supposed to take a boat ride down the river, just again to have a different experience, see a different part of Alaska, the river was overflowing its banks, and honestly, they had to cancel the boat tour on us. So the rooms we had were close to the river, and I was thankful when I'd started reading a few days prior to going and taking my group that I moved our accommodations, because I was like, you know what, the hotel seems a little too close, because the banks are really flat. If you start to overflood the banks, I mean, nature's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to roll right into town, and it's better to try to keep ourselves out of harm's way. So, but Talkeetna has some beautiful, you're away from the big cities, so at night you have amazing dark skies. So any chance we get, we will try to get out at night and hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, have an opportunity to experience the northern lights, the aurora. 2025 has been an incredible year, and 2024 actually. Last year we were all seeing reports of the northern lights, the happening even as far south in places like Oklahoma. I had friends texting me photos, Minnesota, all kinds of places. So it really is dependent on a few things. You need the solar activity, which right now we're in the midst of the end of a very active solar period where you have these solar flares and expulsions coming off the sun and coming towards the earth, and then the magnetic fields hitting it is what's causing this amazing just lights and dancing effect over the sky. And so you need clear skies so that you can see if there's clouds, you're not going to witness it even though it can be happening. And it needs to be dark enough. And at this time in Alaska, towards the end of August, we are getting enough hours of darkness to experience the northern lights. And I will say there's nothing like it. Originally, when I first went to Alaska, that was the whole reason I wanted to go, is I had read that Fairbanks gets the most number of clear sky nights to witness the northern lights in North America, and you don't need a passport to go to Alaska, so it makes it fairly accessible. And I've had some amazing experiences that it really makes sense now when you're standing out there in the darkness and you see the sky just lit up and dancing. Some people say they experience almost like electricity in the air. Everybody's eye sees it a little different. Your camera, iPhones, cell phones now, the technology, you can usually pick it up even better and brighter on your cell phone just by holding it up to the sky. But once you experience it, you really understand, like, if you didn't know what was happening, you might really feel like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? Like a volcano or like a massive thunderstorm, the sky is what's happening, not knowing what was happening and having no explanation. So it's really an incredible experience. I hope everyone gets to experience sometime in their life. And like I said, we will try to make use of any dark night that we can. And in light of that, it does make it kind of interesting, because if we're out until 2, 3, sometimes I've been out until 4 a.m. with a group, I try to adjust our start time the next day. So we do try to stay rested, or prior to going out, if it looks like, hey, it's going to be a great night, everything's lining up, that we've got an open, clear sky, and we have the numbers are looking good that we might see something. I might also, before we go out, just say, hey, you know what, we're going to take 3 to 4 hours to have some downtime. And I highly suggest in that downtime, instead of hustling around, trying to go shopping or do something else, just literally take a nap. I mean, that will really help you, because the more rested your eyes are, the more rested your body is, you can really enjoy the experience. And no one wants to go on a trip and be so worn out that you really can't enjoy it. So Talkeetna, maybe a boat ride. We'll probably, like I said, hopefully see the northern lights, see some artisans. Just the landscape starts to change. We start to see more of the mountains. The tundra this time of year hopefully is changing colors. We see reds and yellows, and it's just, and probably some animals. It is moose rutting season generally, so sometimes we see some moose. And then we'll head up towards Denali National Park. Denali is the native name. That is the name I like to call it. We're not going to get into why it's being changed or what it was before, but essentially Denali National Park is one of the best national parks, and it is a national park where the Park Service has really taken strides to try to make it the park that stays natural. They want the animals to still feel like it's kind of their park. So after the first, I'd have to look up the exact number, 15 miles maybe less, you can't drive a private vehicle on your own past that point. So we do get tickets to go into the park past that point with a national park naturalist. And these drivers, I think they're amazing. They drive this road often, and they get used to kind of like, hey, it's early morning, we might see a bear, and to me, it's amazing. But you do have a busload of people also hoping to look for movement in the bushes. And this time of year, the bears are gouging themselves on berries and things. So it is hopefully we'll see a big old bear. Last year, or the last time I went, there was a bear literally right off the edge of the road, and he just sat there and he was just eating away. He didn't even, our bus, he didn't even really, even though we know the bears know that we're there, he just didn't, he was ignoring us. And so we got some really amazing photos of this amazing bear. And all of a sudden he just kind of walked out of the bushes and ambled off down the road. But to see an animal like that in their natural habitat is just, again, it's amazing, and it's an inspiring experience. We often see a lot of bald eagles. There's sheeps, there's all kinds of different animals, ptarmigans, which are these interesting birds that have like really almost furry little feet, claws, I guess, for the winter, and you'll see them. And you're just outside. And so again, going out there with the bus and listening to the naturalist. And again, the idea of like, what if we all see something and we want to be very quiet, we lower the windows very carefully. You keep your hands, arms, even your camera lens needs to stay inside the bus because again, they're trying to just try not to impact the animals and the natural environment as best we can. So it's an amazing experience and well worth. The bus is long. I will let you know a lot of the trip is a lot of sitting. So we try to break that up a little bit if we can when we're in our own vehicle with stopping, maybe just walking around the vehicle for a little bit or stretching our legs because it is a lot of sitting on this trip between boats, being in the vehicle, maybe a bus, being on these excursions. Denali is a place you are welcome. Not on my trip, but if you were to go on your own, they do allow hiking. You can hike on your own. Be aware there are bears, of course, out there. So that's why I kind of stick with the bus. I kind of don't think I'm comfortable being out there on my own with the moose and the bears, but it's a really incredible. I've been very blessed to see some amazing animals. So we spend 2 nights near Denali because it'll be almost a pretty good long day between Talkeetna and Denali and having a meal, getting out, like I said, stopping, maybe going into the park the first evening and driving that stretch on our own so that we can see if the moose are out rutting because I have seen quite a few moose this time of year. It is their season to be in rut, mating season. So the males are kind of competing for the females. And so they tend to be more active during this time of year. And then after Denali, we'll head north towards Fairbanks. And like I said, Fairbanks is where we definitely go out to experience the Northern Lights with 2 people that are aurora photographers. And all that means is they know where to look. They've been doing this for years. They met each other photographing the Northern Lights in, I think, Iceland. And then this is just their passion. So they really, if you bring a camera, they'll be able to help you set up the camera to take photos. We'll also get an opportunity to have our photos taken and return with some portraits, which is incredible. It's such a nice keepsake to have that. And they also explain a lot about the phenomena of the Northern Lights. And really, if you're bringing a camera and need to borrow a lens, these are things that we can work out ahead of time. But honestly, even if you're not a photographer and you bring your iPhone, they have tips, they will help us, and they honestly dedicate themselves fully to looking at that map, looking at their information, and sometimes they're driving us quite a ways outside of Anchorage to get to that open area in the sky. I've had nights where it's like, oh no, there's a lot of clouds, but somehow they find the spot, they take us there, and they, provide us hot chocolate. They really take care of us out there and make it really comfortable. And if it does get too cold, we've got a nice heated, warm vehicle to pop back into. And then if something starts to happen, everybody can get back out. So it's really a nice experience. They really make it as comfortable as possible. And honestly, the last couple of years, it hasn't been that super cold. I always recommend bringing layers, bringing gloves, heavier socks, but you kind of know your body as well. If you tend to be a little bit run colder, as I call it, you're going to want your, maybe extra layers than the person. Like my sister tends to be more warm-blooded. She's walking around in winter with a pair of shorts sometimes, and I'm like, are you, we're just built different. So she may not need as many layers as me, but I'd rather have the extra layers so that if you are cold, you can put them on, because there's nothing worse than standing outside and you're excited, you're trying to watch the sky, but our bodies take over. If we get cold, we're going to just shut down, and now we're cold, we're uncomfortable, we get cranky, we don't want to be standing out there. So we always want to, I'll go over a packing list and suggested items that I use. I have some other videos I've done last year too. From Fairbanks, there's other things to see as well. There's the university has a really amazing exhibition gallery slash historic kind of exhibits, and some beautiful artwork, again, done by Native Americans from there. There's a garden if there's time. There's some local markets where they're literally the local artisans that are making jewelry, great places to pick up, you know, a souvenir or a gift for yourself or someone else. Those are places that I actually like to go, or there's kind of actually kind of like a farmer's market, but you see them, their vegetables, you talk to the woman that's making the bracelet. So it's really a really interesting and wonderful experience. Then we have a longer drive, and we're going to take a different route, which I have done several times. It's been on all my trips because I just think it's such a beautiful drive. It's kind of what I call the back route, coming down from Fairbanks all the way south, past Anchorage down to Seward, which is on a peninsula on the ocean. And then we take a boat out into the Kenai, and again, I may be mispronouncing it, Fjords National Park, which it's all these inlets, these rock sculptures, all these beautiful pine trees, beaches where sometimes you can spot a grizzly bear or a black bear, out to the glaciers. There's a couple of glaciers out there, and they do bring the boat in fairly close. And you can witness as the glacier is melting and pieces are breaking off, you can hear that and experience that. If you are a little, if you do get a little motion sickness, we can always, you might want to take steps to think about that before we go, and we can discuss that off camera or on a phone call as well. I have had a couple people have some issues with motion sickness out on the water. So whether it's, you know, I know sometimes the bracelets work, or taking something ahead of time. And if you're someone that's like, I've also had people that are like, you know what, I really don't want to do that today. That's just too much time on the water. I'm not comfortable. Seward itself is just, again, a really magical town. You're right on the water. There's a trolley, and there's several activities. I will make sure that you have things to do that day, or, you know, I may even stay behind with you. It just depends on the situation. I really try to make this work for you as a traveler. That's the beauty of small groups. We can make adjustments. We can try to work as best we can to cater a little bit to everyone's needs. Seward, like I said, it has a wonderful, it's kind of like a conservation aquarium, and we always do include it, but you might want more time there, say on that extra day that we're out on the water, where they have a puffin room. And it's all these amazing puffins that are, you know, maybe their wing got damaged, or for whatever reason, they're kind of being rehabilitated. But you literally are in this room, and the puffins are just walking right past you. They're flying over your head. It is just, I've got to say, that's one of my favorite places, is to see those puffins. They're just an amazing, pretty bird with the beak, and just, they seem so sweet, you know, just wonderful animals. And Seward is also well known for the cuisine. You're right on the ocean. The fish is coming in fresh. You'll see fishing excursions going out this time of year and bringing in their catch. Same with when you're at the airport. You'll see people that are bringing coolers that they're going to take back their fish that they caught on their trip back home. But the food in Seward, just incredible foods. And if you have certain food allergies or concerns, again, we can cover all that. It's just, communication is best, you know, letting me know what's what. All of the rooms I try to pick are very comfortable, walking distance to things. I try not to use corporates, just because I really like the experience of staying in places that are locally owned, people that really care about sharing what's their story, how did they end up in Alaska, you know, what's their background. Or we had a woman once that she knew I was bringing a group, and she's like, hey, if I'm not there, I'll leave the key X and let yourselves in. And we got there, and she had a note on the door like, went blueberry picking. And we're like, oh my gosh. Within an hour or so, we had fresh, hot blueberry pie that she'd just been out picking, and it was like to die for. It was just incredible. So it was an amazing experience. So lots of unique things to do. I'm going to wrap the video here and stop the recording. So if you're on the live call, you can ask questions and answers. The website is yourphototravelguide.com or the-travelcollective.com for pricing and exact details. And my name's April. You can always email me direct at april@aprilart.com. So let me hit stop and get some questions.